Hello, good evening, everyone. You're all very, very welcome. Thanks for joining us here on this special evening broadcast. If this is your first, we're delighted to have you with us. And if you are able, we want to encourage you to share the live stream tonight. So just if you're on Facebook, share it out with your friends and your contacts. A lot of information tonight. We've been looking forward to this presentation for a number of weeks, and we're going to be dealing with all things RSE tonight. So we've got a lot of material to cover, and we'll be coming to that very shortly. But before we get into that, we're going to turn to God's Word. Christian organization, and we base everything on the Bible. We are based very exclusively on the gospel, and so Pastor Clive is going to bring us a short devotional. So thank you, Clive, and what you have to say.
Thanks, Wesley, and good evening, everyone, again. Thank you for the opportunity of listening. And the thought for tonight really came to me as I thought about our subject of questions and answers. And I started thinking that the number of times that the Lord Jesus, when he was asked a question, actually often replied with a question. Sometimes he would say, well, what does it say in the law? How do you read it? The great encounter in Luke chapter 18 and verse 18, whenever the rich young ruler comes to him, and the gospel picture is very clear of this very wealthy, very influential individual who was spiritually hungry, who runs up to the Lord Jesus and he says, "Good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life?" What a question. Just wow. I wonder how we would have responded. We would have had him probably on his knees saying the sinner's prayer within a couple of minutes. And yet the first thing the Lord Jesus said to him is, "Why do you call me good?" Here's a fantastic question. How do I get to heaven? How am I saved? How am I sure that after my life is over, I will go to be in heaven? Why do you call me good? Only God is good alone. And then from that, it's interesting that the Lord begins, in a sense, to deal with them on a horizontal level, a human level. All the relationships that you have in this world that are covered in the commandments. And when he comes to the end of that, the Lord looks at him and says, "Okay, you've kept all those from you're a young man. You just lack one thing." Wow, can you see the interest gathering within him? One thing. Sell everything you have, give it away, and come and follow me. In that encounter, through those questions and answers, the perception of the Lord Jesus was that there was indeed a man before him who was breaking the first two commandments at least. There was another God in his life. There was another idol in his heart. And that idol was wealth. And suddenly his countenance dropped. You can picture it, imagine it, visualize it very easily. His countenance dropped. And the scripture says he went away sad. What a wonderful way just to touch people at the very core of their being by asking the relevant questions. In John's gospel, right at the end of it, John says, "Little children, keep yourselves from idols." And one modern translation actually says, "Little children, keep yourselves from anything that takes God's place in your heart." What is an idol? An idol is anything. Anything. It could be money. It could be a relationship. It could be, I think, for some people, their job. They have sacrificed for their career, a right relationship with Christ. It's anything that takes God's place in your life. And yet, for me, the greatest example of question and answer with the Lord Jesus, it took place very, very near the end of his ministry, before he turned his face to go towards Jerusalem. We're told that he was in a place called Caesarea Philippi, a Roman settlement. And as he was there, he turns to his disciples. He's about to tell them, as he puts his face towards Jerusalem and the cross, and he says to them, his disciples, "Who do people say that I am?" He asks them a question. And the answer is, it's really interesting. Some say you're John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, a prophet. And then the Lord Jesus says, "But who do you say that I am?" What a question. And the Apostle Peter turns to him and says, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." What a confession of faith. What a proclamation of faith. And the Lord Jesus said to Peter, "Look, Peter, you haven't dreamed this up. Flesh and blood has not revealed this to you. This has been revealed to you from heaven, who I am." You're quite right. You're Peter. You're the rock, but upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. A confessional church, the confessing church, confessing who Jesus is, was, and always will be. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. I think that really that's where I want to really stay tonight. Just thinking that as it was for Moses in 1 Corinthians 10, the Apostle Paul says, when Moses struck the rock and that life-giving water flowed, Paul says that rock was Christ. Whenever the psalmist was in trouble, he could say to God, to Yahweh, "You're my rock. You're my rock. You're my fortress. You're my deliverer. In you will I trust." And in an age where there are so many questions, we're going to try to tackle some of them tonight. In an age of total perplexity, in an age of total confusion, where do we turn? Do we turn to where the Lord Jesus said, "What does it say in the book?" You know, I want to come back and say that we are Bible-believing Christians. We don't apologize for that. We want to simply follow what God has said, completely and fully. And we want to look to him and proclaim him the Son of the... You are the Christ, the Messiah, the long-awaited one, the anointed one. You are the Son of the living God. Jesus Christ is Lord tonight. And that's our rock. That's our fortress. He's our deliverer. I hope that all of us can say that tonight. You know, if you're fearful, if you really find the world been upside down, is affecting you, then in the early church, Jesus came to turn the world right side up. And that happens through a relationship with him. He's the rock, my rock, our rock, and he can be your rock.
Pastor Clive, thanks for sharing with us tonight. Appreciate that. We have some issues with our stream tonight, so I think you will need to just share out the link on YouTube. But if you're just joining us, delighted to have you with us. Do please share the live stream and share it out with others. We have a lot of interesting material to cover tonight. Just a couple of events for your information. We are doing a public meeting Wednesday night at 7:30 in Mackerfeld Baptist Church. So if you're anywhere in the Mid-Ulster area or beyond, you'd be very welcome to attend Mackerfeld Baptist Church. That invitation has come into us here recently, and there'll be a full presentation on the come into Northern Ireland and various plans and strategies that we are looking to employ in getting them reversed. So join us at 7:30 at Mackerfeld Baptist, and then I believe also there'll be a time of prayer possibly at that service. And our main event that we are organizing is going to be on Saturday, the 2nd of September at 2 p.m. at the city centre of Belfast. There's going to be a public rally of protest against what Chris Heaton-Harris is doing. And we want to see many of you there. So if you please can share the link, and if you go on to the campaign against RSE Facebook, you'll get the link there for that event. Please encourage as many to attend that. That is going to be a very public event, and the authorities, the government is watching carefully how that event and the level of opposition there is to these changes that are coming to RSE. So we have a good lineup of spirit, and we're just trusting for God to bless us that afternoon. So that's Saturday, the 2nd of September. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to chat, and we'd be delighted to try and maybe answer them tonight if we have time. Before Mark comes and brings his pressing hard over this last few days with a lot of thank you for sending those in. I'm just going to quickly run through the video for the rally on the 2nd of September, and we would like you to share this video with as many people as you possibly can. Now, to get the video, you need to click on the WhatsApp group link. So if you're on YouTube, you'll see a link which will take you to the group. This video will be on that group after the meeting tonight. So click on that link if you're on Facebook, and that'll take you into the group and will be available for you to share. So Mark, could you just run the video, and then as soon as that's over, then
Okay, sorry about that. We're having a number of technical difficulties tonight. So what I would advise that you do is head over to the YouTube stream. Now, what we will do after this evening is we will upload a video of this evening's stream, and we'll put it on the YouTube and on the Facebook. And what we do is encourage you, if you have any questions after that, just to get in contact with us. Now, as Wesley has said, the chat is open on both YouTube and Facebook. So we would encourage you, if you have any questions as tonight goes on, drop them in there, and we can answer them as we go along. But hopefully the majority of the questions that you ask will appear in tonight's presentation. This is not hopefully just going to be all me speaking. We're all going to pitch in, play a part, share an opinion, because we have got quite a lot of great questions to answer tonight, and we've been inundated with questions. Now, you may not see your exact question this evening, but what we've had to do is kind of compile all of the questions on the same theme, and push them all together, and we'll answer them all as one. So if you think we've missed a question out, hopefully you will find the answer to your question within one of the themes for this evening, and you should hopefully find that okay. Because we are having some technical difficulties, if you're watching on YouTube and it's working okay for you, take a couple of seconds now to just hit the share button, fire it out to your friends on WhatsApp, or anybody you know who would be interested in this, and have them tune in. And again, any questions that you have as we run through this evening, please do pop them into the chat. So first big question, and this is the question that we have been asked most over the last week. Is this all fake news? And I think this question is coming off the back of the fact that last Monday, the Department of Education issued a issued a letter to the principals of all schools in Northern Ireland, saying that there was a false information campaign being waged about RSE. And on last Tuesday, that was picked up by the BBC, really only the BBC, who ran this same story on a number of their platforms. And because of that, a lot of people have been contacted us saying, well, is this really happening? Is everything that we're reading about RSE fake? What should we believe and what should we not believe? Today, we wrote a letter to all post-primary schools in Northern Ireland, directed to the chairs of the Board of Governors. And the key message that we had in that letter was that parents, teachers, grandparents, governors, and others have every right to be concerned about what is happening with RSE, even if some of the information that they're using is flawed. But this is incredibly important, and we've shared this a lot of times in the past. Whenever it comes to information that we put out, we have got to be so careful to make sure that it is absolutely perfect, because the BBC and the Department of Education are going to use any minute flaw in the information that we put out in order to try and discredit those who are opposing the plans that the Secretary of State is putting into place. And let's face it, what are we dealing with here? We're talking about the future of our children. There is probably no fight that is bigger or more important than this one. And we have to get this right. And we need to make sure that when we share our information, that the information that we provide is accurate, it's up to date, and can't be picked at by those in government or in the media. So one of the things I do with my pupils when I'm in school, and I should really have said, my background is that I'm a teacher. I've been teaching 17 years. I'm head of a maths department. And one of the things that I encourage my pupils to do in school is to question everything. Don't just believe what I say because I'm the teacher. Test it. See if what I'm telling them stacks up, if it matches up to their own findings. And when it comes to information, and this is something for all of us to do, when it comes for information, we should always test our information, critically evaluate, and check to see whether that information makes sense before we share it on. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to check out the background of the source. So who is the source? What is their background? What is their expertise? What have they shared in the past? Is there anything that you can look at to say this person has been right in the past or they've been wrong in the past? It's really important that you consider who the person is, because ultimately we all come at this with our own agenda. I am sharing information tonight with you with my own agenda. There are organizations who want to see RSE pushed into schools. They will share information with their own agenda. So it's important that you understand that you shouldn't just accept everything anyone says. Test who they are, what's their background, and what is their expertise. The second thing that I would challenge you to do is to check what they're saying. So first of all, can you verify it with other sources? So can you find other sources that back up the claims that they make? We live in an age, an information age, where it's so easy to pick up your phone, go online and find anything that you want that will agree with a position that you want to state. You could literally go on and say, give me some proof that the sky is pink. And some nutcase on the internet will have made a coherent case for the sky being pink. And if you share that information, say, well, I found this video, this is fact, it's not doing your due diligence. So can you find anything else? Can you find anything else that verifies the information that they're sharing? And as well as that, and this is probably one of the more controversial things that I believe, test or listen to the counter arguments. Very often I think that when we're passionate about something, we get caught in our own little bubble, and we don't give consideration to what the opposition are saying or what those who don't agree with us are saying. And it's incredibly important that we do. And for me, in campaigning that I've done in the past around the issue of abortion, I have learned far more listening to broadcasts from pro-abortion advocates than I have listening to pro-life people. I have learned far more. And it's changed my whole perspective on the issue and how we should fight it, because I've seen what they're really about. So I would encourage people to go and listen to the Human Rights Commission's talk on our current RSE provision, listen to what they're trying to push and the way they're trying to go. Go and listen to Connie Egan. Dare I say, read the Department of Education's letter and take in the information that's there and consider all sources. Think critically and evaluate. And I want to reiterate again, this is incredibly important. There is no more important fight than this one, because this is about our kids. This is about their future. And as I said at the start, yes, there is some incorrect information being put out into the public domain. And because of that, we have the Department of Education coming out and saying there's a false information campaign. But we've got to make sure that we get this right. We have to make sure that we get this right. And I've been accused of many things over the past week by a number of people. But one of the things I want to make absolutely clear, those people who have been accused by the Department of Education of passing out false information are not bad people. They're not bad people. They're passionate. They're concerned. They're legitimately concerned about what's happening. They have reached a large number of people, and those people are legitimately concerned. And I want to reiterate what we said time and time and time again. We are more than happy to sit down and talk with anybody and share our information, share our sources. And for you guys out there, we are more than happy to take criticism. So if you go to our website, it's on the screen at the minute, go to the website, have a look at the information it contains. If you find fault with any aspect of it, pick up the phone and call us, send us an email, drop us a WhatsApp message, drop us a message on Facebook, and we will be more than happy to talk it through with you, because we feel that the information we have on our website cannot be picked apart by the Department of Education or the media. And for us, that means that we are on the right track, because we're highlighting the actual reality of how horrific what is happening is going to be. Guys, do you have anything you want to add to that? Clive, you're on mute.
The only thing that I would like to add to that is that our conviction is that God honors truth. And even whenever we're perhaps tempted to over-exaggerate something or stretch something or come to a conclusion that isn't there, in actual fact, we're not strengthening our case, we're weakening our case. And that's why that due diligence that Mark shows has been so very important to us as a group. where he has checked and double checked and rechecked that the information we are putting out is in fact correct. So I'm going to say it again. God honors truth.
Yeah, Wesley, anything you want to add?
Yeah, well, just the old adage, in war, casualty is truth, and anyone who wages a war knows that information is the key battleground, because we are trying to persuade people of our position, and if our information can be picked apart, be criticized, then that is going to weaken us. So I want that we dealing with a very, very skilled and devious and dangerous enemy who knows how to get these laws passed. And we have talked on previous nights of how the law was passed. That's a very critical part, because many people were hoodwinked as to what they were voting for back in 2019. They did not expect that these recommendations would be part of it. The British Parliament would suddenly just adopt wholesale UN recommendations, or CEDAW UN whole for Northern Ireland. Well, and when you listen to the opposition, they say, and I think this is an important highlight. One of the things that they have made great noise about is the fact how incredible. They never could have believed that this would ever be passed, because this would take, in most normal type of democracies, generations to get of strong pro-life laws based on Christian flipped without the people's consent, without nobody in Northern Ireland vote. Stuff is has by convention has been the and people to decide on. So there's they are they're flabbergasted at how this, and they're now using Northern Ireland as a showcase around the world as how you can basically convince countries to abandon one position and adopt another. So as we get into the fight, and this fight is not going to be easy, and it's very, very important to say that the fight is going to be pretty intense, and we need to get the information correct. So that.
Yeah, right. What I think we'll do now is we'll move on to our second question, which is again probably our second most asked question. And that is, what changes are actually coming? And there's a couple of questions in the chat that I think we could tie in here as well. So what changes are coming? Well, I think to understand the changes that are coming, I think what would be good is to speak about the current situation that exists in Northern Ireland with regards to the RSE. So in the curriculum that we have at the moment, there is a statutory minimum amount that must be taught. And schools are able to tailor even that to match their own ethos. And then there is a non-statutory curriculum, which is a kind of series of things that schools may choose to include if they want to. Now, the statutory curriculum, as I said, is pretty small. And then schools are able to tailor their own RSE program to match their own ethos. Now, there's a couple of questions in the chat that I think are worth highlighting. So hopefully this one's going to come up. So as Cliff is asking, do you want all RSE abolished? And including what is currently in the high and grammar schools? Well, personally, and this goes back to what we were saying about checking out all the sources, including those who oppose you. if you listen to the Human Rights Commission's talk on RSE and their recommendations on RSE, one of their findings, one of their criticisms of RSE in Northern Ireland was that RSE programs generally in Northern Ireland, because the majority of the schools have a Christian ethos, promote abstinence and take an anti-abortion view. So do I want to see the promotion of abstinence and an anti-abortion view in our schools abolished? No, I don't want to see that abolished. That's what I'm fighting to maintain, that viewpoint. So I don't want to see all of that taken away. I believe that parents should be given the opportunity to have their children educated in line with their Christian beliefs or their moral beliefs, and I think schools should be clear on what they are or are not teaching as part of their RSE curriculum. Now, here's where the changes come in, because as I said, we've had this situation where we have a kind of promotion of abstinence and anti-abortion views being shared through RSE, and the Secretary of State has stepped in because he's legally obliged to step in by Section 9 of the Northern Ireland Executive Formation Act, and he stepped in to impose a new curriculum, to impose a new minimum. Now, that for us is huge, because since 1921, we've had a situation where in Northern Ireland, we've been able to have our children educated in line with their own Christian beliefs. Schools have had the opportunity to have a Christian ethos. They've been able, over the last 25 years, to tailor their RSE programs to match their Christian ethos, if the school has that. And here the Secretary of State is saying, stuff your Christian ethos, you must teach this instead. And this for us is the biggest change that has happened to education in Northern Ireland in the past 100 years. Because ultimately, what is going to have to happen over the next little while is schools and their Board of Governors are going to have to make a decision about the ethos of their school. They're going to have to make a decision of, do we change the ethos of our school to match up with the curriculum that's been handed down by the Secretary of State and the Department of Education? Or are we going to maintain the ethos of our school and ignore what has been said by the Secretary of State? That is a huge consequence of what he's doing here. So what's actually going to be taught, and this is one of the other main things that parents are wanting to find out. Well, in actual fact, there is no need for any kind of speculation on what the curriculum is going to look like. In fact, it's already been written, and it's already out there for people to view. And I'm going to try and share my screen now, just to show you what the Secretary of State has said, and then we'll have a look at some of the resources that are available. So he has said on the 6th of June that he's laying these regulations in order to provide what he calls scientifically accurate education on sexual, reproductive health and rights, and make it a compulsory component of the curriculum. Well, what's that going to look like? Well, back in May, SIA launched a hub, an RSE hub, and that RSE hub had a range of RSE resources that at the minute are not statutory, but go way beyond what the vast majority of schools are actually teaching. And he said, Chris Heaton-Harris said on the 26th of June, and this is really important, the Department of Education and the current Council for the Curriculum Examinations and Assessment have been developing an RSE progression framework that will be adapted and used in the guidance issued by the department. So if you want to know what the new curriculum is going to look like, all you have to do is look at the SEA progression framework that is already out there. So we'll take a quick look at the progression framework, because I want to also talk a little bit about what's going on with primary schools. So here is the progression framework, and you'll notice that it's split by key stage. Now, currently, the only things that are changing in Northern Ireland is Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. So that is from year 8 in secondary school up to year 12. There is a reason for that, and it's quite a simple reason. The reason that the Secretary of State is jumping in and doing this is all linked to the law that changed our laws in Northern Ireland with regards to abortion. So as part of that law, he had to set up regulations for abortion, but then he also, as part of that law, had to promote abortion. And specifically, what he's trying to do here is promote abortion, although they will pop in a lot of extra stuff as well. Now, it doesn't make sense that you would set up a curriculum for Key Stage 1 for P1s to talk about abortion. You target your abortion propaganda at the people who are likely to get pregnant and eventually seek it. So that's why it's being brought in for Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4. But what we would advise all parents of all primary school pupils to do is to ask their school for the RSE curriculum, RSE policy of the school, and specifically ask the school if they intend to use anything from the RSE progression framework. Because there are aspects of what is at Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 that parents should be concerned about. And I'll show you a couple of them here that were a bit concerning for us. So here, this is in foundation stage. Foundation stage is P1. Then we go into Key Stage 1. So Key Stage 1 is P2 to P4, I believe. And here down in the relationship section, it says be able to list various family types and structures and explain them. So, for example, to mothers, to fathers, adoption, fostering, single parent, and kinship. So that is for children in P2, effectively. And for those of a Christian background, the idea of promoting families that have two mothers and two fathers simply goes against your Christian beliefs. There's other stuff in terms of the human body. So here, be able to name private parts of the male and female body to consolidate previous learning. Understand that it's okay to have funny names for private parts, but it is important that they also know the proper names too. Now, I would argue that my son, who is in P2, doesn't need to know the names of the private parts. The exact names. And I don't think this is something then that is appropriate for a school to teach. Now, as I said, the stuff that is in that progression framework for Key Stage, Foundation Stage, Key Stage 1, and Key Stage 2 is non-statutory. It does not have to be taught, but you should be checking with your school to see if they are teaching any of that content, because the way the curriculum is set up, there's a statutory minimum, and at primary schools, the statutory minimum is really good. But then schools have the opportunity to tailor it based on their ethos, and they could be using some of the materials that are listed here. So please be careful with that. Once you get into to the Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4, you start to find that there's a lot more of the ideological stuff starts to get inserted. So a lot more of the kind of the LGBT stuff, the stuff that a lot of people are very concerned about. And I'm going to have a look here and show just a little bit of the kind of stuff that should be worrying us. So I'm going to share different screen. Okay, so here's some of the stuff. We've gone through the Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 curriculum, and we've highlighted a number of the things that we are concerned about, we feel parents should be concerned about. And remember, this Key Stage 3 and 4 curriculum, this progression framework is the curriculum. The curriculum has already been written. This will become the new minimum whenever it comes to the new RSE curriculum that will come in January. So Key Stage 3 said develop an understanding of sexual identity and be able to describe the terms associated with sex, gender, and sexual orientation, and give examples. Understand and respect the need for tolerance and acceptance towards various lifestyles, attitudes, and values, and acknowledge the unacceptability of prejudice. Understand that the way individuals think of themselves or describe themselves to others in terms of gender is unique to them and should be respected. Recognize bullying, including homophobic, biphobic, and transphobic bullying, cyberbullying, etc., and their responsibilities, and develop coping strategies. In Key Stage 4, which is years 11 and 12, to describe the concepts of sexual identity. So this is all kind of layered. You'll notice this comes, it gets progressively worse as children go through schools. So it's building on what went before. Describe the concepts of sexual identity, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Learn about diversity and sexual attraction, developing sexuality, the gender norms, gender equality, stereotypes, bias, and gender-based violence. Understand the ways that gender roles affect decisions about sexual behavior, contraceptive use, and life planning. Analyze how more gender equal roles can contribute to a healthier sexual relationship. And this stuff, if this as a parent doesn't send shivers up your spine, I don't know what will, because the vast majority of our schools in Northern Ireland are not teaching this stuff at the minute. And in fact, with the ethos that they have, would find it pretty unacceptable to teach this stuff. And it has consequences not only for our schools, but also for our pupils as well. And I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the resources that appears on the SIA RSE Hub. And there are links to the RSE Hub on our webpage if you want to have a look at it. And I want to show you why this is so important, because Chris Heaton-Harris, he talks about an RSE curriculum and talks about abortion as if we can teach it in a neutral way. But actually what we find if we look at scripture is that Jesus says in Matthew 12:30, whoever is not with me is against me, and whoever does not gather with me scatters. There's no such thing as neutrality. And if we ask our schools to drop their Christian ethos, they're going to have to replace it with something. And they'll replace it with secularism. And secularism leads to these warped ideas. Now, what SIA are doing, and I think this is a deliberate ploy, because a lot of you, if you've followed the news over the last little while, a lot of you will have seen resources in England and in Scotland and Wales, for example. You'll have seen resources that are highly sexualized materials, absolutely disgusting materials. And part of the issue that they faced in England is that when the curriculum changed, they were so ill-equipped as schools to teach any of this stuff, and weren't provided with any resources, that they had to go out and seek resources from elsewhere. And there were a lot of organizations, a lot of charities who are just activist organizations, jumped on the opportunity that was presented to them, and they created resources that were to be used in schools that were simply propaganda. Lots of it was completely inappropriate for use. But schools saw an opportunity to get resources. They needed resources, and so they started delivering this absolute nonsense. Now in England, at the minute, recently there was the government have launched an independent inquiry into the teaching of RSE, especially with regards to the teaching materials that are being used, and they're looking at the overtly sexual materials that are being shared, and are going to be hopefully removing that. Now, I think SIA are keen to avoid that situation here in Northern Ireland. So not only are they using the framework as a kind of curriculum, but they're also providing a range of their own resources that match with it. So my feeling is that SIA will, at the end of this, they'll hand over to schools not just a curriculum, but also a workbook or a series of printouts that schools can use. And here's one of the activities that falls in under one of the areas of the RSE hub. So Unit 4 of the LGBTQ plus matters section of the SIA hub is about gender identities. Now, what happens in this activity is the teacher states a fact to the class. So the teacher, and this pink bit is straight out of the resources, the teacher is to tell the class, gender is your internal sense of being a girl, a boy, both, or neither. This is different from your sex, which is understood to be linked to biological and genetic differences between males and females, such as different genitals and hormones. Everyone is assigned a gender identity at birth that is based on their sex. Sometimes a person's genetically assigned sex does not correspond to their gender identity, how they view themselves, and they might refer to themselves as transgender, non-binary, or gender non-conforming. There are many ways that people identify their gender. So this is this is material where the teacher, you think about a maths class, and the teacher tells you pi is 3.14, and all of a sudden you turn around to the teacher and say, actually, it's not. Well, depending on the teacher, I suppose, a lot of people may get into trouble for saying that. So this is a fact that the teacher is presenting. And what we've seen in England is that when children stand up against this stuff, when children say, actually, that's not true, what happens is they get punished for it. So we're going to be in a situation where, Chris Heaton-Harris talks about a factual curriculum. It's not facts at all. This is just psychobabble, gender identity issues that have come up over the last 20 to 30 years. There's no scientific basis in any of this. For thousands of years, people have believed the scientific reality that your sex and your gender are inextricably linked. So this is not about science. It's not about facts. It's about ideology. And when children stand up and say, actually, I don't agree with that, they get labeled as bullies, they get labeled as homophobic, they get labeled as transphobic. There's a website called, a Twitter page called Turning Point UK, who shared this video I'm going to show you back in June. And this is exactly what happened to a boy called Murray, who dared to suggest that there are only two genders.
You're entitled to your opinion.
If I am, then why would you kick me out of class? It's not very inclusive of
Can I finish my
opinion.
sentence, please? Not very inclusive. No, I'm sorry, what you were saying was not very inclusive, and this is an inclusive school.
Yeah, how was what I was saying?
Because I was saying that what's wrong with the website is that there are more than one gender in
Well,
this country.
that's
by law.
your opinion.
That is my opinion, and that is an opinion which is acceptable in the school. I'm afraid yours, which you're saying that there's no such thing as anyone other than male or female, is not
Scientifically,
inclusive.
there are just two genders, depending on what
I get that.
gender
But you're choosing to make an issue of this, because I said, are you really going to do it? That was your opportunity to keep quiet.
You made the issue with it on the website. You said, oh, this website doesn't have more than 2
Murray,
genders.
you were clearly given an opportunity not to pursue it. You chose to do so.
Yeah, because I think it's
You
silly.
chose to do so. Yes, that's the key question. You chose to do so.
I think it's silly to have anything other than 2 genders. So
Okay.
Anything
could you please,
else is a
could you
personal
please
opinion.
keep that opinion to your own house? Thank you. Not in the
So
school.
you get to put your opinion out in class, and my
No,
opinion has to,
I am not putting
my opinion has to stay
I
inside
am
my
not
house.
putting my opinion. I am not putting my opinion out. I am stating what is national school authority policy. Okay?
Well, it's not scientific whatsoever.
Not every policy is scientific, Brian. Not every policy is scientific, Murray.
And you can't come out here and say that I'm not being inclusive when someone says
I
something you
didn't say.
disagree with. So
I said what you were saying was not being
you
inclusive.
kick me out of class. If you want to have a discussion about it, we could have done it. Had a discussion. You don't have to kick me out of class.
I'm
and
sorry,
waste 30 minutes of my time, where I could have been down revising, doing something else. Instead, I state something I believe in. You kick me out of class for 30 minutes. And I'm waiting on the
Take
court.
this somewhere else, Murray. You can make an official complaint.
I'm not
Please
going to
do.
make an official complaint.
Why not?
I just think it's.
I know what you think, and I know what the authority thinks. I know what the authority's point of view
Well, I know
is.
what science
Very clear that we make no discrimination on the grounds of various.
I wasn't making discrimination. I'm simply saying there are 2 genders, male and female.
Yeah.
Anything else is a personal identification.
I'm sorry, but you chose to make an issue of making a point which is contrary to policy.
You
right?
made the issue when you complained about the website, sir.
Yes, and I made it in a way.
And I responded to
and
that
I
by
made,
saying, but there are only 2 genders.
and
I never
said
made the issue.
That I am not going here. You can choose, but you're making bad choices.
I'm making bad choices, okay.
I think
Well, can I take my bag and go to the research area and start revising
no,
it?
you can stay here.
Okay, I'll stay here. Thanks for wasting my time.
Murray, I am not allowed to tell you how much of my time you have wasted.
Okay.
So that video is quite shocking for me. As a teacher, I find it shocking. In fact, I admire Murray for what he did there. A young man who is willing to state a fact and not back down under extreme pressure is something to be admired as a quality. But what I wanted to do there is talk a little bit about what the teacher was saying. Because remember, the teacher here wasn't saying, Murray, you're wrong. The teacher was saying, Murray, your opinion doesn't match with the opinion of the state, with the acceptable opinion. And it reminded me very much of a girl whose interview I heard called Pyonmi. I can't remember her surname, but she grew up in North Korea. And she said that in school in North Korea, one of her earliest memories was being told that, or being asked, what is 1 + 1? And she said it is 2. And the teacher said, no, it's not. And the reason that she was told that she was wrong was because the supreme leader had decided that if you take 1 drop of water and you add another drop of water, you get bigger 1. So the supreme leader had dictated that in all schools, 1 + 1 should be taught as bigger 1, regardless if it was factual or not. And that's exactly what is happening in this video. A child who knows the difference between a man and a woman, who knows that there are either boys or girls, is being told there's not. There's more than that. There's like pansexuals and bisexual, and there's trans people. And the kid's like, that's nonsense. And he is being punished for having that viewpoint. So this is extremely dangerous, not just for the ethos of our schools and the viewpoints of our schools and the ability of our schools to maintain a Christian ethos, but it's also going to be dangerous for our kids who dare not to agree with the party line. Guys, if you have anything really pressing to say, jump in, but I'm conscious that time is rolling on and we still got quite a lot of questions. So is there
Mark,
anything you want to add?
No, nothing. I'm just thinking, Mark, that this may run into part 2, maybe for next Monday night, and because I really think so much information here, and we have so many more questions to get to. So maybe you could just finish off on a few points, and I think we will pick
Yeah,
up this again next Monday at
yeah,
8:30, and we'll get going, because we haven't even touched anywhere about what we do about this, and
yeah,
that's the whole evening on that itself. Maybe you want
yeah.
to.
What I'll do is I'll maybe try and there are a couple of shorter questions coming up that I think we can hit pretty easily. And yeah, we can, if we need to, we can come back in a week's time. So this one's really important currently, because one of the things that Chris Eaton Harris has said right from the start is that he expects the Department of Education to run a consultation on what the curriculum will look like. And a consultation is scheduled to run from either the end of August or start of September, and run for about 8 weeks, is what we heard. So it'll run probably until the end of October time. Now, what is going to be in that consultation, I don't know. But one of the things that is really clear is that people are skeptical that their responses to the consultation will have any impact on making, on changing the content of the curriculum. As we've already seen, the curriculum is written. It is there in black and white. The resources are ready to go. Chris Eaton Harris has already said this will be the curriculum. The one adaptation that he is seeking to that curriculum is the inclusion of abortion, and how to access abortion and how to perform your own abortion at home. One of the things that we were alarmed to find over the course of the weekend is that on Friday, SIA, so the Council for Curriculum, Examinations and Assessment, who have created that RSE hub, who have put together all those resources, advertised for what they call a professional associate. And what that is they're seeking a teacher, a teacher based in Northern Ireland, and they're looking for a teacher with specialist knowledge in reproductive and sexual health and rights. Now, that is kind of a euphemism for abortion. They're seeking a teacher with a specialism in abortion. And the reason that they're seeking this teacher is they want this teacher to write the resources and write the guidance for schools with regards to accessing abortion in Northern Ireland. Now, when might they be doing that? When might the contract start? Of course, the consultation hasn't started yet. You know, people might say, what if parents say, we don't want this taught in our schools? You know, you'd think SIA could save a bit of money and wait until after the consultation, but no. SIA are starting the contract for this person on the 25th of August. Before the consultation has even begun, they are going to be writing the materials on how to access abortion. When does it end? It ends at the start of October. So before the consultation has finished, SIA will have already written the abortion regulations for the curriculum. Now, if that doesn't say to you that this is all a bit of a sham, I don't know what will. But we still feel that it's important that people reply to the consultation. And what we'll be doing over the course of the next few weeks as the consultation is released, we'll be holding more information evenings to support you with filling in the consultation, to give you guidance on what to write. It is really important because what we want out of this consultation is a very clear no from parents to what this curriculum is going to look like. We're partnering at the minute with Christian Concern, and one of the things that we met them during the week to talk about legal issues, to talk about media and stuff. One of the things that we are that Christian Concern are going to be doing over the course of the next couple of weeks is writing to the Department of Education to put them on notice that they are going to be watching the consultation, and they're going to be looking at the results of the consultation, and then they're going to be using those results to see what the curriculum looks like. And if the two don't match, they're going to commence legal action against the Department of Education on that aspect of what is going on. So replying to that consultation is going to be really important. Next little question, and we'll maybe leave it after this. The next little question is about the opt-out, and there's a lot of confusions about parents being able to opt out, and I think this is one aspect of the consultation where the Department of Education may listen. They may listen. There's no guarantee, but they may listen. Currently in Northern Ireland, and some people are getting a bit confused about what the current situation is and what is going to be happening in the future. But the current situation in Northern Ireland is this. Each school can create their own RSE policy in line with their own ethos and their own beliefs. If a parent wants to opt their child out of RSE lessons at the moment, they apply to the school, and the school takes each individual case into consideration. So at the minute in Northern Ireland, there is no guaranteed opt-out. You cannot opt out. You cannot opt out at any stage automatically currently. Now they are going to change that, and there is going to be an official mechanism run by the Department of Education where parents can opt out of aspects of the new RSE curriculum. They are not sure at the minute whether that will be some of it or whether it will be all of it. And we're saying the parents should have the right to pick and choose what aspects of RSE they want their children to go through. Heaton Harris has already said it will mirror what happens in England, and it's really important you understand what happens in England. In England, you can only opt out of the sexuality aspect of the curriculum. Now, again, here in Northern Ireland, some people are getting a bit confused about, what is the word sexuality mean? In our modern language, you tend to talk about sexuality as, and we conflate it with the idea of gender or sexual, homosexuality. Specifically, this opt-out, if it becomes available in line with England, will allow people to opt out of what we would have called traditionally the sex education aspects of the course, and that will include then the abortion teaching that is coming up. It will not, however, allow you to opt out of the relationships side of the course. And that is the section of the course that includes all of the LGBT indoctrination. So we want to make sure that people are filling in the consultation with respect to that part. However, and a big word of warning on this, do not see the opt-out as the silver bullet. Because the Human Rights Commission have already recommended that there should not be an opt-out. There are politicians here in Northern Ireland who believe that there should not be an opt-out. As soon as this curriculum comes in, one of the first things that they're going to be targeting is the opt-out and trying to remove it. It will be a short-term fix that will allow you to opt your children out of specific areas, but do not see it as a silver bullet. Anything else on that, guys, before we...
I think one of the things that... sorry, Wesley.
Go ahead.
I think one of the things that we need to recognize, and this is the way that Satan works, he works gradually. So we're talking here, these are just the first steps. And in terms of consultation, let's go back to this. Sorry for me saying this. As far as I'm concerned, the consultation is a whitewash. There was a consultation on abortion. In that consultation on abortion, the vast majority we're against liberal abortion, those opinions were totally ignored. And all the establishment is doing, it is using this as an appeasement to quieten, to silence people from where they're actually heading. And even though at the moment this is step one, it's stages 3 and 4, do not think that the ultimate goal is not to influence children from the day they step through the school gate until they leave, well, whether that's university or wherever it is. So what we're doing is we're saying now there may be an opportunity for us to do something at this minute. This is why it's important. This is why it's essential for Christians and moral people who believe this, to actually say no.
Yeah.
And to take that stand now.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, so many, we were talking about churches earlier on, so many of them make a mealy-mouthed condemnation of what's happening. But let me tell you, one day there will be an accountability held for us that we did not protect the babies in the womb in Northern Ireland. There will be an accountability that we did not protect our children in the classroom in Northern Ireland. And suddenly people will say, oh, but we didn't see it coming. We're here tonight to say it's coming. And it's up to you to get your friends and your churches and your ministers and your pastors, else every church available, to stand up against this now.
Yeah, and Wesley, tell you what I'm thinking here is we've got 80 people tuning in between YouTube and Facebook. I'm happy to keep going. We've another 3 questions to do. What I'll do is I'll keep an eye on the numbers, and if the number drops below 70, we'll stop. But if people are happy to continue to watch on, continue to listen, I'm happy to keep going. And as I said, we go up to 83. So I'm happy to keep going if people are happy to continue tuning in. You happy with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm happy with that, Mark. Will problem.
Perfect.
And I just want to concur with what Clive has said. What we want to try and do with the help of God is to stop this dead in the water. We need to divert this torpedo, which has been launched by the Secretary of State to the people of Northern Ireland. And we need to say, not an inch, not will you take this ground in our schools, and we must be prepared to do whatever it takes to stop it. And that is a discussion that we will get to at another night, once we are clear on the issues are and what is happening and how this is going to take place. So those are just some of my feedback and thoughts. So, but continue on, Mark.
Perfect. Okay, so this is one very close to my heart. What does this mean for our teachers? So we've talked a little bit about what happens with our pupils. What happens to our Christian teachers? Here in Northern Ireland, we have an education system that has a lot of Christian teachers. And I know that many of them are contacting me, contacting us, and they're concerned about what the future may hold for them. As part of the consultation, the department will also be consulting on giving teachers an opt-out as part of, saying, I don't want to teach any of this content, and allowing them to opt out. Now, what is interesting is the Secretary of State didn't include that in his law, in his regulations. He didn't give an automatic opt-out as part of the law, and therefore teachers are going to have to, in many cases, take a stand against this. Now, we were talking about this earlier. One of my kind of pet hobbies at the minute is the whole idea of eschatology and how you view the end of times and how you view the kingdom of God is vitally important if you're a Christian and how you're going to fight this. So for me, I come from a post-millennial kind of viewpoint. If you don't know what I mean, don't really worry about it. Doesn't matter for this. But my view of the kingdom is this: Jesus Christ is ruling and reigning now. He is the King, not of heaven, not of just of earth. He is the King of heaven and earth. And there is a responsibility that is placed on our government and then on all those who are in authority to obey Christ. And there is a very historical viewpoint called the doctrine of the lesser magistrates that says whenever a government or whenever a political body becomes tyrannical, or whenever they say you must do something that goes contrary to the word of God, that the lesser magistrates, those who have authority but are beneath them, should resist and should actively defy those orders. Now, we have a situation here where Chris Heaton-Harris has obeyed Westminster. He is imposing this based on what Westminster said. The Department of Education seem content to obey Chris Heaton-Harris. What's going to happen in many schools is this is then going to pass down to the Board of Governors, and we'll talk about the Board of Governors in a little while. They have a decision: do they obey or do they defy? And teachers, if it passes to you, you've got the same decision to make. Do you obey or do you defy? And one of the most heartening things for me as a teacher is, without asking this question, I have had lots of teachers, lots of fellow teachers contact me and say, I am willing to break the law. I am willing to break the law. I simply will not do this. And please, if you're a parent or if you're concerned about what's happening in schools, please, I want you to know tonight, there are many, many teachers who are fighting on your side. There are many principals, there are many boards of governors who are fighting on your side. Schools generally are not the enemy here, but we need to appreciate the teachers that we've got, and we need to back them in the stand that they're going to take. Then one of the things that we're looking at is providing legal support for teachers through the Christian Legal Centre and Christian Concern, who have been supporting teachers in England, and we're already putting preparations in place there in terms of prepping teachers. But ultimately, for me, I was talking to someone earlier, and I said, for me as a teacher, when parents hand their children to me, what I want is to treat them like they're my own. I want them to be treated with love and respect, and to be given all of the equipment that they need to succeed in life. But that's where it ends, and I will not teach any of this stuff if it comes in, and I appreciate that many teachers won't either. Now, one of the things that we're going to do is send a very clear message to the Department of Education. So this week we're going to be launching a teacher pledge, and we're going to be asking teachers across Northern Ireland to sign a pledge that they will refuse to teach any aspect of a new RSE curriculum that teaches LGBT indoctrination and abortion. And we're going to be asking teachers to sign up. We're going to be asking you to put your name on it and identify yourself. We're going to update it after every kind of 100 names that go on it, so people don't have to feel they're standing alone. But we need to send a very clear message to the Department of Education before their consultation that we will not stand for this. Okay. One really sad question that came in, and I think this goes back to teachers and to the whole idea of pupils. What if you work in an integrated school, or what if your child goes to an integrated school? Now, people tend to think in Northern Ireland we have Protestant schools and we have Catholic schools. We don't. Historically, all pupils were taught together as part of the controlled sector, as part of the state schools. And the CCMS, the Catholic Church, set up their own schooling system, and very many of the Catholic pupils moved into that system. So we have Catholic schools and state schools, which cater for pupils of all religious beliefs. There's been a big push over the last little while, especially from parties like the Alliance Party, to promote integrated education. And at the very heart of this promotion of integrated education is a desire to take the Christian ethos out of schools. Because if you can say that, oh, we're going to educate all kids together, so we have to be neutral in terms of our beliefs, we have to be neutral, it gives you an opportunity to replace a Christian ethos with something else, because there is no neutrality. When it comes to Jesus Christ, there is no neutrality. You're either for him or you're against him. And the reality of what we're seeing in a lot of integrated schools at the minute is they are very, very, very much against God in the way that they teach RSE and the way that they promote some of the issues that we've spoken about tonight in their schools. So if you're a parent and your child is in an integrated school, my advice, get them out. If you're a parent considering one, don't. And if you're a teacher in one, I'm afraid you're probably going to have to take a stand on your own. But what I want you to know is that we are here. We will support you. We'll give you advice and guidance and legal support if you need it down the line. So, big one. Will schools be obliged to teach this? We had a woman contact us this week who said, my son's school has a really, really strong Christian ethos. Are they going to be obliged to teach this? And the answer to that question is yes. As well as changing the curriculum, Chris Heaton-Harris has placed a legal duty on the boards of governors and the principals of all grant-aided schools. So that's any school that gets their budget from the Department of Education. All grant-aided schools are going to be obliged to teach this. That is so important. So, as I said earlier, they're going to have a decision to make. Many of them, do they defy or do they comply? And we'll touch on that a little bit in the final question for tonight, and that is, what action can I take right now? So hopefully after tonight, you've seen just how bad this is. I'm pretty confident that if the BBC or if the Department of Education are watching this broadcast tonight, they will not be able to say that anything that we have shown you tonight is untrue. All of the materials are there. They're already written. See, have done their adverts for someone to write their abortion materials. It is all in black and white. The resources are there. You can go to the website and look at them yourselves. They cannot pick apart anything that we've said. So what action can you take? And I hope that what you've heard tonight is sufficient in making you want to take action, because action is required. Well, over on our website, we've got a couple of ideas that we think you could be doing now. A couple of them we think will be effective in the short term, and another couple will be effective in the longer term. One that I've been talking to a lot of people about this week is joining the Board of Governors. Really important if you are a concerned local, you can join the Board of Governors or apply to join the Board of Governors of your local school. There are a couple of different ways to get on a Board of Governors. So the first way is as a parent governor. Every school has at least one parent sit on the Board of Governors. Of course, the website doesn't work now. Too many people on it. Oh, here it is. So every school has at least one parent on the Board of Governors, and they serve a 4-year rotation. Now, it may be that your school doesn't have the positions coming up soon, but for very many schools, there will be positions coming up. So what we are advising people to do is to contact the school. If you're a parent, contact the school, find out how to be nominated as a parent governor. You have to be nominated by another parent, and when the current Board of Governors is due to be reconstituted, so when it's due to reform in its different with different people. When the time comes, stand for election. Hopefully, and again, these aren't popular positions. People aren't queuing up to get them. Hopefully there isn't an election. You're the only person who's put their name down. But if there's an election, if you're successful, you get the opportunity to shape your child's school. You have to understand the Board of Governors are the people who run the school. The principal does not run the school. The principal is an employee of the Board of Governors who is tasked with the day-to-day running of the school. It is the Board of Governors who decide all of the policies and all of the practices of the school. And parent governors have the same voting rights and the same speaking rights as any other governor. So you get an opportunity, if you're on the Board of Governors, to influence the way your school approaches RSE and a whole raft of other issues as well. I am personally on the Board of Governors of my smaller children's primary school. Really important for me to do that because I get the opportunity to shape the way that school works and ensure that it matches up to my belief. Clive, I know, has served as a chair of a Board of Governors of a school in the past. Really, really important. Now, if you don't have a child at school, you can still apply to be a governor. And there's information site. If you go to the Join Your Board of Governors, there's a link to the Department of Education's website where you can apply to be a departmental governor. Again, people are not queuing up to do this. They're desperate to get governors. So go and fill in the application form, run through the application form, and get onto the Board of Governors of your school. Because ultimately, what we said is the Board of Governors are going to be faced with a question in the next few months with regards to what to do. Either they're going to choose to change their school's ethos to match the new curriculum, or they're going to ignore or choose to ignore the curriculum to match or to maintain the school's ethos. They cannot do both. And schools are in a really tough position at the minute, because what is going to happen is the Department of Education are going to weaponize the Education and Training Inspectorate, who are going to come in to inspect the RSE policies and the teaching of RE. And if schools do not comply with this, they'll be found to be inadequate. What I would argue is it's better to be found inadequate in the eyes of ETI than to be found inadequate in the eyes of God. That's a simple decision for me. So we need people on boards of governors who are going to be able to influence this. The other thing, and another really important thing that you have to consider, is that very many members of boards of governors in Northern Ireland are clergymen. They're ministers, or in the Catholic sector, there are a lot of priests on boards of governors, and that goes right back to the inception of Northern Ireland, when the churches handed over control of the schools to the state. Trustee governors' positions were created to ensure that ministers always had a place on the Board of Governors, and they could use their position to ensure that the school's Christian ethos was maintained. So you can find out who is on your school's Board of Governors by simply going to the website or phoning the school office. Find who the trustee governors are. Look especially for those who are ministers or priests, and phone them. Ask them for a meeting to discuss RSE. We are more than happy to come along with you to that meeting, or to give you some guidance of what to say. Print out the RSE framework, especially when it comes to the Key Stage 3 stuff in the progression framework, Key Stage 4. Bring that with you and ask them point blank, are you happy for this to be taught in your school? And not only are you happy for it to be taught, are you, as a minister of the gospel, willing to sign it off, to give it the okay? Because that's ultimately what ministers are going to have to do over the next few months. So again, we've got to use the influence that already exists on Board of Governors from ministers or priests, if it's a Catholic sector, to ensure that they take a stand as well. Really, really important stuff. There are other bits that we have advertised on the website. I'm going to be adding a little bit over the next couple of days in terms of the opt-out and how you can take action on it. But one of the big things, and one of the reasons we're concentrating so much on the Board of Governors, is because you got to understand the worth of your child. We have a lot to be thankful for in terms of our schools. Schools here in Northern Ireland provide an excellent education, and you can see that next on Thursday. I'm going to be joining my pupils here, picking up A-level results. And what will happen again, as happens with every year, is our pupils here in Northern Ireland will outperform this pupils in England, Scotland, Wales, comfortably outperform them. We have an excellent education system here, and we have so much to be thankful for. But what you've got to also understand is that the school relies on you sending your child to them in order to maintain their budget. Now, as a teacher, I can tell you that we have had real-term budget cuts for year after year after year. You know, many schools have a kind of $3.5 million plus budget per year. Every single penny of that is accounted for. There are lots of schools that are running at kind of 95% of their budget is spent on staffing. They cannot afford to lose any money whatsoever. Now, the way budgets are allocated on a yearly basis is that at the start of October, schools will submit how many pupils are attending the school at that time, and they will get a budget based on the number of pupils that are in the school. If your child is in Key Stage 3 and 4, so it goes from years 8 to 12, the school gets £4,056 and 24p for every pupil who is in years 8 to 12. Key Stage 5, which is post-16 education, A-level education, they get £5,263 and 46 pence for every child who is sitting in the school. Now, what we're going to do, and we did this in our letter today, we said to Board of Governors, you're going to have to make a decision whether you ignore the curriculum and keep your ethos, or whether you change your ethos and adopt the curriculum. We're then going to be going back to them in January and saying, well, what are you doing? Tell us what you're doing. Are you going to comply, or are you going to defy? And we're going to collate their responses and publish their responses on our website on a safe school list. We'll highlight those schools that are going to defy the Secretary of State and are going to continue to teach RSE in line with their policy. We're going to publish them. We're also going to publish those who are currently teaching this stuff or are going to teach this stuff under the new curriculum, in order to allow you, the parent, to have the choice of what school you want to give not only your child to, but also money to. Now, as a school, if you were faced with losing 10 pupils, 5 pupils over RSE, you're probably going to have to make a teacher redundant. That is how tight budgets are at the minute. No school in the current climate can afford to lose any pupils. They're fighting to get pupils in the door. So we can use that as a bargaining chip with our schools and with our Board of Governors to ensure that they will they know that parents are going to be watching, they're going to be looking for what they're going to do, and they will take action on it. And I would very graciously say that if you have a parent of a child at school and the school is going to change the RSE policy, and there is no opt-out or there's a limited opt-out, I think you very carefully need to consider moving them to a different school who is going to protect them, or consider homeschooling or Christian schools, of which there are very few around Northern Ireland. So those are some of the actions that you can take in a minute. The other big one is that we need to send a message to Chris Heaton Harris, a very clear message, very loud message, and say, back off on this. And you have an opportunity to send him that message on the 2nd of September, 2:30, Wesley? 2:30?
2 o'clock.
Is it? 2 o'clock. 2nd of September at 2 o'clock, outside his offices, Chichester Street in Belfast. We're going to be holding a rally. We know that there are churches who are sending busloads of people to the rally. Please come along, voice your concerns in person at his offices right in the centre of Belfast. Make a lot of noise. We're working on media for it at the minute with our friends at Christian Concern, and we would love to see you there in order to take a stand. So, Wesley, Clive, anything I've missed there, or anything else you think we need to point out?
Good job. No, excellent.
Yeah, no, I think you've covered most of the questions that were sent in. I know there were a lot of other very specific questions, and maybe we'll get to them on another evening. This is just a broad brush, but there's a lot more information that we do have to share with you in the coming weeks. So I think we will be back here next Monday at 8:30 on these channels. Subscribe. Also follow the page when we go live, and you'll be able to hear the latest information from the campaigns. I do also want to say we've been talking to others who are involved in this fight, and there's some very positive developments coming out of that. So pray for those developments, that God will continue to work. And also, I've just been notified tonight there's going to be a parliamentary petition which will be going up sometime very soon on the UK Parliament website. That is quite an important statement for people in Northern Ireland, that these evil laws should be rescinded, and we'll be talking more about some of the political actions that we can take into when we get into September time. But the key message has to be to Chris Heaton Harris on the 2nd of September, with a huge volume of people saying, stop what you're doing, back off, repeal these laws, and leave our children alone. And he needs to hear that loud and clear by hundreds and thousands on the street on Belfast, that on the 2nd of September. So thank you for being with us. If you have any further comments or questions, info at niagainstrse.com, or you can get us on any of the other contacts. We'll be happy to talk to you, happy to have any discussion to that. If you have any other specific questions, please do feel free to get in touch. We do appreciate your support, your encouragement, and your prayers. So good night from all of us.